Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical, and snowy neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. Wonderful episode lined up for you today. First up, Jessica Lawrence McCready and her husband Sam McCready are here to celebrate Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Race. And later in the show, we'll be meeting Seina Wedlick, who'll be here to celebrate space for everyone. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures, delightful children's book written by Helen Rogerson. Woofy awakens suddenly to a feeling that his friend Bun needs him. When he arrives at the place his nose leads him, Woofy is confused and doesn't find Bun right away. Then a shout from above leads to an amazing experience as he puts his paleontology skills to work. Together, he, Bun, and a cat that hangs around the site wrap up a wonderful adventure involving a T-Rex skull and a very cool twist of an ending. The story is told in a lyrical style that incorporates actual fossil hunting concepts and vocabulary. If you like dinosaurs, friends who help, and adventures, you will love this book. You can check out Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures and all the Woofy books at unpackyourownhappy.com. Joining me right now from the absolutely beautiful and, I must say, delicious nation of Italy. Our guests are here today to celebrate Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Race. Please welcome first the author and illustrator, Jessica Lawson McCready. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jed?
I am wonderful, and I'm so looking forward to speaking to you about this book. But before we do, we should introduce your husband and co-author, Sam McCready. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jed. Thanks for having us.
Delighted to have you on. I love sloths. We've traveled to, my beautiful wife and I have traveled extensively through Central America and spent some time at a sloth sanctuary in Costa Rica. So they're pretty adorable and fascinating creatures. So tell us about Theodore.
Sure. So actually, when we first wrote Theodore, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, that would have been
2008, I think, is when we wrote our draft together, like a long time ago. And it was before sloths were really on the radar. I mean, obviously they existed, but everybody's sloth crazy now, but back then, a lot of people they didn't really know what a sloth was, But since Sam, he's a former veterinarian, so he knows all about animals, and we were talking about something in our life we were having a low point in our life years ago, and just feeling really frustrated, and one of us was trying to compare like our endeavors, our dreams, to like a sloth who thinks that he can go fast, or a sloth who thinks he can race. It's just like we're just ridiculous, and what we want from life is just not realistic. And then Sam, knowing some things about sloths, started just kind of opining about various ideas, and we ended up that night just kind of starting to write the first draft of Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Race. And we thought the idea was just like so funny and cute that we stopped feeling sorry for ourselves and just focused on the story instead. And it was sort of, it was just kind of a neat moment for both of us.
Well, Sam, I'm curious if Theodore had such a big part in turning your life around, or turning the way you were looking at your life around. Why did it take so long to finish up?
Because we're the sloth.
Oh,
Yeah, the book is perhaps somewhat autobiographical in that sense.
It really is. Like, the whole life imitating art, like I've thought about that a lot because we actually wrote the first draft really quickly, like probably about like a few days. Yeah, like it really came out quickly. And then cleaning it up took a little bit longer, but really not that much time at all. And so we probably had like the polished story within a few months. I mean, we're both working full time, so, we had other things to do as well. But really what took so long was just getting it illustrated, because obviously we knew it was an illustrated book, a picture book, but we couldn't figure out how to get it illustrated. And I actually tried a few times to get someone else to illustrate it, and it just didn't work out. Like it was on me. I couldn't quite articulate what I wanted to see or the ideas. And Sam kept telling me, Jesse, just do it yourself. And I'm like, I'm not an illustrator. And I just felt really like incapable. Like I felt just like that wasn't something I could achieve. And Sam just kept encouraging me to do it. And I just slowly started hacking away at it and teaching myself how to draw, and in between jobs and moving and, all these kinds of life things. And so it really took years to put the book together. So that's why, Jed. But now it's here.
well, I'm delighted that it's here. And you're right. The world is kind of sloth crazy. Right now, my kids are grown, so I'm sure if they were younger, when my daughter was a kid, it was unicorns, and so in uni the unicorn still exists upstairs in our home, my wife's art studio right now. But I'm sure if she was 8, 9, 10 years old right now, she'd have a sloth.
They're cute animals. Who can't love a sloth?
They are cute animals, and they're really fascinating. Sam, as a former veterinarian, there's some things I learned about sloths down in Costa Rica. But they're really fascinating creatures. Other than just moving very slowly, the people in Costa Rica said they're not lazy; they're just energy efficient.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good. Can you tell us a little bit more about sloths?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's actually a good way of putting it. They are extremely energy efficient, very slow moving, very slow digestion. They don't eat a lot. What they do eat takes a long time to digest. They're just made for not really moving a whole lot. I think most people that know anything about them know they actually have algae growing in their fur, which is sort of, when I was a kid, I remember hearing about that and thinking, wow, that's a slow moving creature that has algae growing. But the algae is actually kind of fascinating in and of itself. It's unique to sloths, the species of algae. So you don't find that in other places, in the forest or whatever. It's strictly an algae fur. And it's actually passed from mother sloths to their babies, which is kind of cool. And it serves the purpose of actually helping to camouflage the animals because they are so slow. They're very easy prey for any predator that wanted to go after them, and so blending in and, being well camouflaged is very important to them.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I found fascinating was when I learned that they only come down to the ground once a month to pee.
Yeah. They come down very, very infrequently. They go to the bathroom in the same place every time. The only other times they really come down is if they're moving, if a male sloth is trying to find a mate, they will slowly make their way across the forest floor to go find that mate. But everything is extreme slow motion.
We have the fact about the bathroom, the movement related to using the restroom, in our slothy facts. And every time I read it in the classroom, the kids just think it's so funny. And the fact that the sloths always go to the bathroom, they almost always go to the bathroom like in the same place. Yeah. And every time we read that slothy fact, the kids are like, ew. It's very cute.
Well, that's why it stood out to me because I might be almost 100 years old, but I have the mind of a 7-year-old. So
I think that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Was there one thing about illustrating the sloth that you found especially challenging, Jessica?
I think just the confidence. I mean, I think that's why it's so personal to me, and I think that's really, it's kind of magical. The whole story of Theodore, it really, in a way, like even though we wrote this years ago, I look back on the illustration process and I realized I went through the exact same thing that the character in our book went through, except Theodore had more confidence in the beginning. But I just really just felt like this is not my forte. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I shouldn't be doing this. Who do I think I am? You know, I can write, but I just never thought of myself as somebody who is capable of illustrating. And so it was really just a matter of confidence. And, you know, you have to have confidence to start, but then you also have to have confidence to stick to it and to keep trying and to believe that you can learn and get better. Because if you don't think you have the ability, you're not going to think you can learn. And if you don't think you can learn, you're not going to have that incentive to apply yourself and believe that just kind of trust the process and keep trying and keep learning and you will improve.
Yeah.
I think that whole process was really a personal growth thing for me. And it really just sort of taught me I was just super insecure about it. And it really helped me realize like all of us go through this. Like all of us face something that we think we're not capable of doing. And it could be something silly like my obstacle, or it could be something way more significant, but it's kind of the same process where you have to believe in that potential in yourself, that possibility, and that you have the ability to learn, you have the ability to improve, you have the ability to do whatever it is. But you have to apply yourself and try.
Mm-hmm.
So really that to me was the biggest obstacle, but then the biggest lesson and reward as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, this is something that we've chatted about with different authors and also illustrators. I think and I think it's something important that we can talk to our kids about. A lot of people and a lot of kids will see their peers that this person just has a natural ability. That you know, is like, oh, he's an artist, or he is an athlete, she is a dancer, and I could never get to I don't have that natural ability. I could never get there. And the reality is we might not achieve the same level, but we can certainly learn because it does take natural skill, but we can also learn these skills and develop the skills over time.
Absolutely. But then I also think that, you know, kids, we all pigeonhole each other. So you come out the womb and all of a sudden, oh, you're just like Uncle Bobby, you know, or whatever it is. And we just pigeonhole people and you internalize that, I think, as children, and you carry it on into adulthood where you've just been told this is who you are. This is what your abilities are. And maybe you don't have that natural ability, but maybe you do, but you just never even tried because you didn't even know, you were just told this is what you're good at, right? And so there's that aspect too, I think, where we limit ourselves from realizing our potential because of just like this structure that's imposed on us, and we just take it in and accept it because we don't know better.
I think to me, that's kind of one of the lessons of Theodore.
Yeah,
Theodore is a
absolutely.
sloth.
Sure.
And so it's very easy to pigeonhole him as you're slow, you're never going to be a racer. And, you know, is a sloth ever going to outrun a cheetah? No. But a sloth can perhaps outrun his older self and become a better racer than he was. And I think that's most skills in life. I remember seeing something once with Steve Jobs from Apple Computer, you know, and talking about how he looked around at all these people he admired, you know, these ones that had great success in technology and business when he was a young man, and realized that, you know, they don't have anything I don't have. I'm just as smart. They may know something I don't know, but I can learn it too. You know, I think that's an important lesson for kids in general. You know, before you started recording, we were talking about Italy and, you know, Bologna and, you know, and the Renaissance, you know, really got started here. And you look at, you know, the Renaissance people, you know, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they weren't just pigeonholed and limited to one thing. Yeah, they did art, they did sculpture, you know, they did engineering and design, and and learn languages, or in America, I mean, probably our best example would be Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, who, same thing. They were involved in so many different pursuits and so many different skills with this, I think, open-minded optimism that, hey, I can learn this. I have this brain and I can use my brain and I can use this body to do things, even if, someone else maybe thinks I can't. I feel like I can, and I think that's an important lesson for kids to get, because I think so many kids do get told, very early on, oh, you'll never, do this, or you'll never do that. You can never be a doctor. You can never be a lawyer. You can never be an airplane pilot. Or whatever.
Somebody else in their life that's close to them has already claimed that goal, and so they feel like it's not their right to pursue it as well. That happens a lot too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sam, you bring up a good point, especially in terms of the Renaissance people that you mentioned. I think a lot of those kids who have that natural ability in one place, I think that can be a detriment to them, because especially now, kids are specializing. You have a kid who's a good soccer player, unlike when I was a kid where it's winter, we play hockey. It's spring, we play baseball. It's fall, we play basketball. And you're just playing everything. Now, at such a young age, kids are specializing. And you're a good soccer player? Okay, you're playing that all year long, every year, from the time that you're 7 or 8 years old until you burn out, which is like right around college. And, and you did all that so you can get a scholarship to go to college.
That happens quite a bit, actually. You're right about that.
I mean, and so much of that, I think it's this pressure that gets put on children, frankly, by, I think, oftentimes parents who are vicariously trying to live through their
You feel
kids.
like they missed out on that opportunity.
And I don't think it's a new thing. My dad, I remember, talking about when he was a kid, his father trying to turn him into a baseball player or something, and, so I don't think it's new, but I do think it has become increasingly prevalent in our society, and yeah, if a kid's great at soccer and loves soccer and wants to go play soccer, super. But, I think if that kid says, hey, I'm great at soccer, but I really would much rather, I don't know, carve wood for a living or something like that, I don't think they should be, having that brushed aside, until they can't do it. There's a reason somebody can't do lots of things, be good at lots of things and pursue lots of things and not just be forced into something for financial reasons or, for the, glory of their parents or whatever. And you mentioned, like you said, I mean, they get burned out. I mean, you see this in some of these childhood stars from Hollywood, that, they're, on a television show and they're the big thing. By the time they're 18 or 20, their life is a mess. Or, music stars or whatever. And then, I don't know, I don't want to cast judgments, but I mean, I think, it's a lot of pressure to put on a kid,
Sure.
You're going to do this, it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jessica, I gotta ask you, you were sharing with me that you had lived in New Hampshire here in the States, not too far from our Boston studios. And now you're in Italy. Did you just move for the food?
That's right. No. So Sam and I are kind of, when we got together many years ago, we both had just finished professional school, and we decided that what we wanted to do was to use our education to be able to live and experience different cultures around the world as much as we possibly could. So, with that ambition, we've lived different places around the world, for jobs, so that we can afford to live there and, pay off our student loans. So that's kind of what brought us here. There was an opportunity on the Army base in Vicenza, and Sam applied and got the job, and so we came here.
Great. What parts of the world have you lived in, Sam?
So we met when I was in medical school towards the end of that, and Jesse was in law school. And my first job out of my residency training was in Germany. So we spent a year in Germany.
Which inspired my first book.
That's right. Yeah. So her first novel, Liberty Fry and the Wishes of Hessen, was very much inspired. Where we lived in Germany and where I worked was where the Grimm brothers were born and grew up.
It was so amazing.
And it was just fascinating.
They were my childhood heroes, so this was like amazing for both of us, really.
We would go for walks in the woods around our house in the little village we lived in Germany, and you could totally see how, these fairy tales came to life. You see these old growth forests, and I can imagine a wolf chasing Little Red Riding Hood.
These ruins from like
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
rising from the forest.
Yeah. There's like Roman ruins and stuff. And, so Germany was a fascinating thing. And prior to meeting Jesse, I'd never been outside of the United States. I grew up as a Navy brat, bouncing around the United States. My dad was in the Navy. My mom was a school teacher. Jesse actually grew up overseas in Indonesia and Malaysia. And so when we first got married, I think she made it her mission to take me out of the country. We went to Thailand and Malaysia, and that was a very eye-opening experience for a small-town boy like myself. And so, yeah, we decided early on that we wanted to try to live in other places and not just stay in one spot in the States and climb the corporate ladder and grow old and die. And so took a job in Germany. We were there for about a year. While we were there, Hurricane Katrina hit. And my parents lived out on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. That's where I went to high school. And so we went back to help do hurricane relief work. Jessie took a fellowship, working to help people as an attorney. She was helping people that lost their houses and stuff to help get back into, living. And I worked at a community health center. We did that for a few years and then took a job in Tonga in the South Pacific working for the U.S. Peace Corps. And so taking care of Peace Corps volunteers in Tonga and Samoa. Did that for 2 years, and then we went to China and worked for a year in China. I was working in a hospital. Jessie, way before COVID, she actually started doing remote work and kind of set up her own business doing remote legal work and grant writing and grant support while she was writing her novels on the side as well. So the whole time we were in Tonga and Samoa and China, she was doing that. We then had an opportunity to go to Indonesia, which I thought was great because that's where she grew up. I'd always heard about Indonesia, and so it was really a great opportunity to go live there. So we were there for 2 years before coming back to the States, and we had a house in New Hampshire. We actually still own a house in New Hampshire, and that's where we were before we came to Italy 3 years ago.
Wow. That's really fascinating. And with all that travel, I love New Hampshire, but I completely understand.
New Hampshire's gorgeous. I mean,
it is. It's so beautiful.
Like I said, we still own a house up there. It's
the Northeast is beautiful.
It's about an hour south of the Canadian border, and it's just a winter wonderland. And in the summertime, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
I think one thing that I think what we like about Theodore too is like this idea of your dreams and persistence and determination and self-acceptance. Like these themes, like they're anywhere you go in the world, like all of us face these issues and have those needs that we need to embrace and strengthen within ourselves, right? Like it doesn't matter what culture you're in. Every kid has a dream of something they want to do that's impossible. Everybody has that in their heart, and whether or not they feel brave enough to express it is another thing altogether. But all of us have this, and in every culture, like everybody has this in themselves. And so I think like this feeling of like, okay, you've got this idea, you've got this image of what you want to be or who you want to become or what you want to achieve. And I think sometimes it seems so impossible that we just keep it our secret and we don't do anything about it, because how are we going to do something, or either our situation or whatever, or our ability, we just feel like it's not something we can achieve. But I think the idea is that these dreams and ambitions, there's always something you can do to take one step forward towards that. There's something you can do to some practical available step that you can take that will move you a little bit closer to whatever it is that you're dreaming of doing or becoming or achieving or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think the more that you go and live in different places, the more you just see how important that is in the human spirit, to have that little glimmer of hope and that little roadmap of it's okay to think this out of the box thing that you really want, and it's okay, and it's actually something you can strive for. But you have to approach it like you have to believe that it's doable in the first place. You have to believe it's something that you deserve to strive for in the first place, and that you can strive towards.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's encompassed in the founding documents of our country. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You may not get happiness, but you have a right to pursue it. I feel like as humans, we have a duty to pursue it. We have an obligation. We're given this thing, this life, this one life, and And yeah, I mean, I say this from a position of privilege growing up in the United States compared to, some kid growing up in, some poor situation in Ethiopia or something. But all of us, I think, one thing that travel has shown me is around the world in various cultures and places, we have more in common than we have differences, and I think we lose sight of that. But I think one common thread is we're all humans and we all have value and we all have worth, and our feelings and our dreams and our aspirations have worth. And I think oftentimes we're told to suppress that and to do what you're told and to obey and comply. And, and it's a hard struggle, but I think it's a fundamental human right to pursue your own dreams. Your value as a human is no less and no more than anybody else's, and your dreams are no less than anybody else's.
What a great message to tell and teach our kids at a young age. And it sounds like Theodore, the sloth who wants to race, is a great tool that we can use to kind of reinforce those messages and share them and instill them in our kids.
So we hope it's fun too. Like, we hope it makes them laugh at the same time.
Well, they're going to laugh when they get to the back matter about, the sloth coming down once a month to take care of business. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Theodore, the sloth who wants to race, and find out more about both of you.
Yeah, so probably the best place would be Jesse's website, jlmccready.com, which, talks a little bit about her and to me to a lesser extent, but, talks about her and the books, and not just Theodore, but her other books as well.
And also links to an older blog actually that we used to keep that tracks all of our travel, and that features Stan quite a bit. So. Yeah.
So that was one thing when we were in Tonga. We realized that there were so many things that would be easy to forget, and so Jesse started keeping a blog, just more almost like an online diary of our travels. That's called tongatime.com. Which talks a bit about various places.
So you can link to that through the jlmccready.com website.
That's right.
And you can learn more about Sam that way.
Now, is there any destination, because you both are young, you're probably going to live in another 15, 20 different countries, but is it one place in the world that you both say, we're going to go there?
Honestly, like Italy was sort of like, I'm not that I don't want to go other places, totally do, but I for me, Italy was like my dream destination. When Sam got this job, I could not believe our good fortune. I was just on cloud nine for probably a year, just not believing how lucky to live in such a place. And I still feel that way, but obviously when you actually live somewhere, real life settles in and, but I feel still like I've actually asked myself that question, like what after this would not be kind of like, oh yeah, this is nice, but Italy.
So I don't know. I mean, I parrot everything she's saying in terms of Italy is just a fabulous country. It's just got so much history, such overwhelmingly warm, kind people, and just its beauty, culinary, artistic. I mean, everything, the buildings, everything, is just gorgeous here. But yeah, I'd like to kind of see all of the world, to be honest. When I was in my training, there was a guy a year behind me in my residency program, and he was talking about, having lived in Australia for a year. And he made a comment. He said, I feel like you really need to be somewhere for at least a year before you start to feel like you're there and feel like, you're understanding to some extent the culture rather than just being a tourist. And there was another guy in my residency who was originally from Pakistan, and he had spent a year or two in Norway and had it paid for, I think, by the Norwegian government, some sort of exchange program. And he had talked about, if you can find a way to travel as you're living and get paid, that's really where.
I think he helped us form our whole life plan.
And those two people kind of, had a big influence in the sense of it's really great to go visit a place. Like I said, my first time out of the country was getting off an airplane in Bangkok at 3 a.m. We spent a month in Thailand and Malaysia, and it was great, and I loved it. But living in Germany for a year, where you're living there and you get to know your neighbors, and you're getting your car registration and getting your mail and figuring out how to recycle things. And, you become a little bit more, I guess, aware of the commonality and the differences, but the more common things we have with people in other places. And that's kind of been our goal, is to try to go places, not just as a tourist, but to go make our living somewhere and become part of it and be there long enough to really learn it. It's a long-winded answer, I realize. To your specific question, we've never been to the African continent.
Oh,
I want to go. I want to spend time in various places in Africa. I've interviewed for a few jobs there over the years and almost pulled the trigger. So I'd like to see that. We haven't really spent any time in Central or South America. We've been to Mexico numerous times. So those are kind of big on my bucket list to go spend time in both of those areas of the world. We've done a good bit of North America, Europe and Asia, but yeah, those other places we really haven't been.
Yeah, Jed, you've been further in there than we have going to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've traveled to Panama and Costa Rica with my beautiful wife, and then last year I toured El Salvador with Clowns Without Borders. We went the width and the length and width of the country, and it is a beautiful country. They've really transformed the country. It had been incredibly dangerous, and now it is the safest country in the Americas. So, and they're growing. So that's if you want a recommendation, check out El Salvador.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I'm in favor of it.
We've had a great time speaking to the authors and illustrator of Theodore, the Sloth Who Wants to Race, this great new picture book from our guests, Jessica and Sam McCready. My friends, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Jed.
That's great.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Join us from the beautiful Bay Area in California. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It just launched today. Please welcome to the show the author of Space for Everyone, Seina Wedlick. Hey, Seina, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Gently. I'm so excited to be here.
Delighted to have you on. Space for Everyone. We're not talking about blasting off on our way to Mars, right?
No. No, we're not. We're talking about, it's a picture book about a girl whose family table always has space for everyone. It's a picture book that really celebrates community and passing down family traditions at the kitchen table.
You know, food is food for community, I think. Those communal celebrations for so long, our home here in beautiful Boston, beautiful Reedville, was the epicenter for both sides of our family. We were blessed to be able to buy this home with a huge, for a home in the city with a huge piece of property on it. So we would have cookouts, and when it was, this studio used to be the place where we'd have 30, 40 people over for Thanksgiving dinner and holidays. And it's such a It's such a wonderful thing to be able to invite people into your home, to your table.
Yes, I agree. And, I always really say someone isn't really family until they've sat at your table. And whether that's to share a meal or exchange stories, or even just coexist over a cup of tea. At least in our home, the kitchen table is really the heart of our family. So I really wanted to write a book that celebrates that, what community could look like, and what it means to be able to move something that's meaningful to you, even when you move homes. So, for people who haven't read Space for Everyone, since it just came out today, it's all about a little girl who is a little apprehensive because her family is getting ready for a big move. And her family would always have people over. There's always space at her table. Neighbors would join them. Family and friends would come together. And her family table will expand to just, include everyone. And so she's anxious about the big move. She's wondering if they're going to have any friends or community in their new home. And of course, in their new home, they take the table with them, and she gets to see what it's like to start over with a brand new community all around her family's table again. So it's just a really fun book that really just celebrates what it's like to move and to still take your community with you, either in your heart or to build a new one around the new table. And this was a lot of fun for me to write.
Well, that's really fantastic. My home growing up, and actually our home here, the kitchen, as you said, is kind of the control center. It's the hub where everybody comes. We have this, lovely living room and a very comfortable couch and furniture and whatnot. But everybody, it's in the kitchen, and people are sitting on the counters.
Yeah.
Or, it's just, it's wonderful. It really is.
Yes, it really is. And I think one of the reasons why I really wanted to write this story is when I think about picture books, I wanted to create a book that kids could read and see what it's like to have a sense of belonging, what it's like to build community, share traditions, bond with your family, and also get them thinking about what keepsakes or memories are really important to them in their current lives. So this manuscript, I think when I was writing it was, it was really important to me. And I'm just so excited that it's finally out in the world today. So this is very timely.
Now, was there a certain incident or certain memory that inspired this book?
Well, yes. First of all, I'm going to have to say our family table growing up, I've talked about this before in other interviews, about how I would go under our family table when I was a kid, and I would read books for hours. I just loved that table. It was huge. And then, of course, now as an adult, my husband and I had a really massive family table. Our table, when fully expanded, could seat 12 people, and it could also contract down to 4 people. And so we would always have it at the, at the largest it could go, because we loved hosting people. And when we moved from a bigger place first to a smaller place. We had to contract our table. And it was really interesting because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this table has seen a lot of activity. And we have children now, and I was going over pictures with our kids, and my daughter said, hey, this is our table. She was referring to a picture of our table in one of our older homes when she was really small. And I was like, yes. And I was thinking, this table has actually moved to quite a few places with us. And I really wanted to write about the memories we'd created around it and what that was like. So that was what pretty much inspired this story.
Well, what a great story, and what a great memory. Oh, boy. I imagine that there are people listening who have the same experience, and they're like, yes, but there are other families out there that, they don't have as a huge extended family. Maybe they're new to the neighborhood. They haven't made those connections yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't know what we're talking about. Can you?
Yes, but also, just to be clear, like I really think, at the heart of it, it's really just about those quiet moments that we spend with our loved ones around the table. So, for example, in Space for Everyone, the main character, Zainab, gets to share tea and talk about her day with her mom. She gets to look over family pictures at the table with her dad. Her friends come over from school. She does homework at the table. It's really the everyday things that we take for granted that people often do at their tables, but you're actually creating memories. And if these tables could talk, they'll have a story to tell. And I think anyone has a table, whether that's a work table or the kitchen counter, they have a place in their everyday lives that they always come back to recenter themselves.
Mm-hmm. I imagine one of the conversations we could have with our kids as we're reading Space for Everyone is just talking about where that space is, where that table in our own lives.
Yes, where that space is in your right, in their lives, where they feel safe, where they feel comfortable, and what feels like home to them. It could even be their rooms, and just starting to have those conversations. And this book explores all of that.
Yeah. As I'm looking on your website, all of the books that and I know they've been illustrated by others, but they're just so vibrant and.
Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you how lucky I feel. So our first start with Space for Everyone. This was illustrated by Camilla Secret. And when I first saw the initial sketches, even before they shared the color prints with me, I was so in love. I was so honored that, she worked on this manuscript. I've been so excited. I've been staring at it, since I got it. And I can't wait for everyone to see it. And then, of course, The Night Market, which was illustrated by Brianna Mukodiri Uchendu, is a beautiful book. With The Night Market, and for those of you out there who don't know, The Night Market is a picture book that follows a Nigerian girl on a fantastical adventure through a Nigerian night market. So it's a story that starts, at sunset and goes on till sunrise. So it's a day in the life, but at night. But anyway, the main character in The Night Market explores this beautiful market. And when I read it, I kept wondering, for a book that takes place, entirely at night, how would that be illustrated? What would that look like? And Brianna used these beautiful blues and purples, and this book is just absolutely gorgeous. I love everything about it. And let's see. Oh, my debut picture book is called Naming Ceremony, and that was illustrated by Janine Mohammed. This book was such a gem. It's been such a pleasure to watch Janine's career, continue to soar. I've been incredibly lucky to have always been paired with such talented illustrators, and it's always pretty magical for me to see my words come to life. So I'm very grateful.
All of your books seem to be very personal.
Yes, I love writing stories that center around, my culture, heritage, traditions. I like to leave how will I frame that? Pieces of myself on the pages. I like to pick parts of my life, and instill those into my stories. I have 3 little kids, and I always want to write stories that they can see themselves in, but also stories that serve as windows for other people who aren't necessarily from our same background. And yeah, I love books. I love reading. I love stories about culture and tradition. And I also like fantasy and magic and everything in between. So I'll read it all. And hopefully I can also write it all someday.
Was it difficult at all for you when you first started sharing these pieces of yourself and your stories, to allow somebody else to illustrator to help you tell those stories through their pictures?
No, because I cannot draw to save my life. So I'm so grateful for my illustrators. I've been very lucky and honored during the whole publishing process to work with editors who keep me looped in. Like when the initial sketches are done, they'll send it over and they'll say, Seina, what do you think about this? Can you clarify here? Do you have any thoughts? And for the most part, I'm always just super excited. I rarely have any things that really, like poke at me. I like to think about it and see if there's anything I keep coming back to that I want to have changed. So I'll take a few days to reflect, and then I'll come back and say, do you mind terribly if we could tweak this, or do you mind terribly if we could change that? And I've been so lucky that they always say, sure, yeah, thanks for bringing this to our attention. Yeah, happy to, fix XYZ. So it's been an amazing process. But I must say, for the most part, I'm really hands-off doing the illustration portion. It's all about the artist and them having creative freedom to bring those words to life on the page. So I like to stay away from that. I think the one big ask or change is, a lot of people didn't know this, but for my debut naming ceremony, I wanted to honor my kids and my two oldest children. I put in their Nigerian names, Oricha and Onize. And in the book, they're not the main character. I just portrayed them as the cousins. So it's just a line or two. It says the cousins have arrived. Oricha and Onize run down the hallway. I know that's a boy name and a girl name, but when I saw the sketches, they had two girls running down the hallway. And I was like, oh no, this is a boy and a girl. And, if I wasn't married to those names, if I wasn't as tied to those names, I could just have switched the cousins' names to two girl names, and so that we could, honor the illustrator's vision. But I really wanted the names to be Oricha and Onise because those were my children's names. And I was like, do you mind terribly? This is a boy's name. Can you please, can you guys change that? And they're like, oh, sure. Thanks for correcting us. It wasn't even a big deal at all. They went back and they made that, one of the cousin characters a boy. And that has made me so happy, so happy. And yeah, it's wonderful.
That is really wonderful. Did you always dream of being a child?
Yes. Like, even before you finish that sentence, yes. I've done quite a lot of school visits. And one of the things that I say to those kids is, I feel as if I'm living my dream life. Growing up, I loved books. I would read everything in sight. I just really, really enjoyed reading. And I would write out stories on paper and staple them together. And I always wished, that I would be an author when I grew up, but I didn't really see it as a real possibility. It was just something that, I wished for. Like when you're a kid, you wish to be people wish to be rock stars and actors and actresses. I wanted to be a children's book author. So as an adult, just living that dream is so exciting for me. I love school visits. I like telling kids out there, if you want to write, if you want to draw, dream it, and you can do that too. So
I made a living doing educational magic shows at schools across the country for 35 years, and I know interacting with kids is so much fun, and it's often very surprising because you never know a kid is going to ask you or say.
Exactly. You never know what they're going to ask you. I've been asked who my favorite football player is. I've been asked if I like pineapple on pizza. I've been asked if I like vanilla or chocolate ice cream. And sorry to disappoint a lot of kids out there, I like my ice cream as boring as can be, so I love vanilla ice cream. So yeah, it's always fun to hear what their questions are going to be.
That's wonderful. I was recently, in fact, it was just in the fall of 24. I was at a school in New York, and I got this question. The kid in the front row was very anxious, and right in the middle of performance is waving his hand. And I said, obviously you have a question. What would you like to ask me? And he said, are you Mexican?
It's out of the blue.
And I said, no, but thank you. I know,
Yeah, kids ask the most random things. It's always fun. It's always fun. And I think I've been to school visits where you can tell the teachers have carefully like coached them to, ask questions relating to the book. Ask about the character, ask about the thought process. But then there's always the one or two rogue child who's like, but do you have any cats? What about any pets? Like, it's so fun.
I saw on your website there's a space that says coming soon. So there's another book. Can you give us a sneak preview of that?
Oh gosh, yes. I have a book coming out next year, 2026 by HarperCollins. I'm so excited. Let's see, what's a hint I could say? It's about a little girl who is her town's storyteller. I'm so excited for this book. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, you have an open invitation to come back and celebrate that book.
I would love that. Thank you.
We should tell everybody the address so they can look at the website that I was referencing.
Yes, please. My website is www.seinawedlick.com. Seina, Seina, Wedlick, Wedlick. SeinaWedlick.com. You can also contact me using the form on there and send me questions.
And there's also a tab there for school visits. And
yes.
I'm having a wonderful time with Seina. So you and your kids would have a wonderful time with her too.
Thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate that.
Had a great time speaking to the author of Space for Everyone. It's a brand new picture book from our guest, Seina Wedlick. Seina, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope you join us for the next exciting episode of the show. The best way to make sure that you don't miss a moment of Reading with Your Kids is to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We love the iHeartRadio app. We love Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pod. We love all the wonderful outlets that carry Reading with Your Kids. And if you are listening to us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please be sure to let your local station manager know you love Reading with Your Kids. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. We invite you to visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can find many episodes of Reading with Your Kids on our YouTube channel, as well as our Drawing with Your Kids and our STEM is Family Fun episodes. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Jessica Lawson McCready, and her husband, Sam McCready. Please be sure to check out Theodore, the sloth who wants to race. Also want to thank Seina Wedlick. Please be sure to check out Space for Everyone. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
go.